Welcome to the Bitcoin Business Podcast put on by Sovereign. I'm your host, Brandon Karpeles. And today we have a little bit of a different episode. We're rounding out the year here. We're in Christmas season, New Year's season, Hanukkah season, Kwanzaa season, whatever season you're celebrating, or for all you atheists and agnostics that yell at me on Noster, that are even more religious about their beliefs than I am on mine. You can just do whatever the hell you want, and I don't really care. And it doesn't matter anyways because you're just going to be worm food anyways. So you can enjoy doing nothing, eating Chinese food, and going to the movie theater on Christmas Day with all my Jewish friends, and then not even celebrate Hanukkah. So have fun doing that. Anyways, I digress. I was not planning on bringing that up. It kind of just came to me. But we have members of the Sovereign team here. I would say the um, the the brain trust making 95% of the decisions for the company are here, and we kind of wanted to do a inside and internal episode, if you will, with the people here. One, just to for us to get a chance to talk, like in a sort of open environment where we don't really have any limits on time. Most of the time, we're getting on 30-minute calls or hour-minute calls, and everyone has hard stops. And we're talking about business. And sure, we'll sprinkle in a little Bitcoin talk, a little tinfoil hat talk, but we never really get a chance to sit down and have a free form flowing discussion like this outside of a couple times a year when we meet in person or something like that. But really, we just don't get this opportunity. And we wanted to, one, reflect on the year for Sovereign, what it looked like, and what we're looking forward to in 2026 from a business perspective. And then also just get a chance to talk, get the message out to people in our community, outside of our community. What are we doing? Why are we a good place for Bitcoiners to send people that you may not have otherwise thought of? And then why are we a good place for people outside the Bitcoin community and the business community that we're trying to get into? Why is Sovereign a good place for them to come in? So we don't really have a set agenda. This is going to be sort of a free form discussion, but I want to welcome Jeff Newman, our head of sales, our chief revenue officer, I guess we could call him, and John Balkam, our chief marketing officer, to the podcast. So thank you, gentlemen, for joining us.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
Or joining me, I guess.
Joining you. Yeah, it occurred to me that I've done a few internal podcasts here at Sovereign, but we've never been in the same room, And then I said, John, join us because I guess, as we end this first year together, we created the C-suite. Brandon's the CEO, John's the CMO, I'm the CRO, Chief Revenue Officer. But I started as the business development officer. And as far as titles go in a startup, you can just do things, make them up. But one of the things I've noticed this year as we built the team and interviewed people was a lot of people want to work in Bitcoin, and that's great to be on the mission and to merge that. But then the real question is, what's your core competency? What can you do today? And that's why we're finding a lot of great people with success where they're mid-career pivots and we need to work in Bitcoin full time. But when you join a team, it's what was your prior career and like how can you contribute today? No training to the mission and like so that's kind of where we all find ourselves. Is I think the three of us, it certainly made the journey a lot funner and less scary to not be alone. And not going too far in the past, I started the year off saying I need to work in Bitcoin, and I was ready to hang up a shingle and just do private consulting, Jeff LLC by myself, but that's overwhelming. I mean, I'll be real. So when I found Sovereign, I said, "Oh wow, it's Bitcoin only consulting, but you've already got started. There's a current, something here, and it's not too big like a Deloitte or something else where they're scattered." So that was great. Where I don't want to go too far in the past, and maybe we weave it in. But Brandon, John, what did Sovereign look like in January of 2025 as we're speaking? And if I can, at block height 928289 for those following along at home. So
Yeah,
that's
not
across our
quite a palindrome block, but pretty darn close. A cool arithmetic sequence regardless. So
Yeah, 928 289. So, John, what was it like in January of this year?
Well, first off, I just wanted to join this show because I was jealous of Brandon and all of the amazing guests that he's been able to discuss and have conversations with. But yeah, as I reflect on this year, I mean, I really met the founding Sovereign team in the fall last year, and then I came on board in at the end of May, beginning of June this year, full time. Um, my my draw to Sovereign was that I just thought it was an amazing brand with an amazing mission that lined up perfectly with what I wanted to do in my professional life for the next 5, 10, 20, however many years it takes to fulfill our mission. And, we've evolved. We've switched up some of our strategies, some of our tactics, some of different ways that we approach the marketplace, but the core mission is still the same, right? We're aiming to get Bitcoin on every balance sheet. Like I came I have an entrepreneurial background, so Sovereign's really my third venture in the past 10 years. Um, and Bitcoin changed the way that I approach and help transform the previous business that I was building before I came here full time. So, what did it look like in January? I mean, we had the ebook out, we had a little bit of a different team set up, a little bit of a different approach. But throughout this year, and the cool thing that's happened in the second half of this year is this: we've just reinforced and clarified our mission around helping as many businesses as we physically can understand, integrate, and manage and benefit from Bitcoin. So, in that sense, um, look, it's been an amazing year. We're just getting started, and I'll leave it at that, and we can dive in a little bit more.
yeah, it was. I joined in November of 2024, and when I joined, it was a completely different setup, as you said. And it's funny, Jeff. I realized when I was calling you the CRO, the Chief Revenue Officer, the world I came from, CRO was like a pejorative, and it was a Chief Restructuring Officer. It meant someone had to come in and change your business, and that's that these are for 20, 15, 20, 30 year established businesses. It's very different when you're a startup and you're constantly restructuring. And we got in, and basically all of 2025 was a complete restructure in terms of trying to figure out what we were actually doing, what the market was demanding from us, how to go out and generate business, and all of these other things. So it's been a really cool journey to sort of go from this sort of put out the bat signal, get the social media cranking, get the ebook and resources cranking, and have a consultant team set up, and then the phone will start ringing, to realizing that that just wasn't producing results. It wasn't generating leads or anything like that. And then transitioning into more of a direct sales model of going out, finding customers. But what was so cool about that shift was we had built all of these great resources and this great platform, and the newsletter and the podcast that we've been just continuing to build out all throughout last year. And that our founder, Daniel Frank, who unfortunately had some health issues, was unable to continue running the company this year, but had put just tons of work into building that foundation and getting everything there and having all the resources there. And he was handling the podcast. And when he was unable to do it anymore, he asked if I would take it over, and I said sure. And slowly the things I started taking over just became more and more, and reshaped the company. But um, what's so cool about that is that coming to work at Sovereign, coming to be here, you get the opportunity to be in control of your own destiny, and you generate your own leads. You generate opportunities for yourself, but at the same time, you have this big platform of resources and production, high quality production behind us. Our ebook, which I try to send to everyone that reaches out, they all have great things to say about it. They're all incredibly complimentary because we put so much time and effort into it. It looks great, it reads great, and it's really cool to have all of that stuff, which I think if we hadn't sort of started where we did and then shifted, if we had just started with this model, I don't think we would have ever built out the library and the catalog that we did. And people really should take advantage at sovereign.io, SOVREIGN.io of all the resources and everything we have up there. And it's been cool to watch the change, but then also know we have this really great foundation of content and products out there.
If I could say that, so the name of the ebook is The Business Case for Bitcoin. Um, Free download PDF, 80 pages, also some infographics. And our feedback from partners, customers is that it's like, again, people that are new to Bitcoin, people that are not new to business, um, small, medium-sized business owners. By the way, who are we trying to serve and help here? It's entrepreneurs, business owner operators. And when we say like, there's like an umbrella term SMB, um, small, medium sized business, small, medium sized enterprise, SME. But that's such a blanket statement. There's 34 billion small businesses, private businesses in the US alone. So it's effectively, it's the long tail. Um, but the good news is that, on our mission to get Bitcoin on the balance sheet, to educate business owner operators, to help them with Bitcoin adoption and integration, and also see Bitcoin as money. So it's a journey. They don't have to do everything at once, but we also talk about how is Bitcoin a store of value? Is it a medium of exchange, a unit of account? It's all three. It's perfect money. Again, that doesn't mean our customers will understand or adopt every single thing at once. So we meet them where they are, and but the resources we have are, again, and I want to say this is our, is this the first year or is this second year of Sovereign being around? But I think what we've built this year is effectively the first year, and I appreciate the conversation today. I asked for this podcast where I said before we all relax during the holidays and start a fresh year, which is a psychological start to 2026. Let's show our work. Let's talk about some of the challenges, some success, and also just the journey. I mean, when I think about this year in review, what's wild to me is the three of us did not know each other 1 year ago today. I go back to my calendar, like, what was in my head? What was my responsibilities? What was Jeff doing on December 17th last year? And it's a completely different life. And then this year, 2025, it was like, no, I need to work in Bitcoin. How, where, who, and finding Sovereign and meeting the team and the team changing and all of us rising to the occasion to build this. And yeah, and then also one of the things I looked at was our conference calendar. So we had a conference calendar of earlier in the year, Q1, Q2, of where we plan on going. Brandon, you were invited to speak at Prague. John, you're in DC, and the conference, BTC in DC. We created panels for that the last day of September, the first day of October. And I remember spending the whole year saying, oh, that's so far out there. I'd like to go. And then not just like to participate or help out. And then fast forward, John and I are leading panels in DC. And like it's just amazing how in the same calendar year I can go from I'd like to go to that, attend that, to participate, to add value, to create a panel with three business owner operators who were podcast guests, and then have them tell their story. So that was really cool. I don't know if Brandon, John, if you want to share stories, but just this year alone, where we've been. And
I mean, the big theme I got out of this year is you can just do things. And certainly starting a new business like this is just live action and just see what happens, right? Because it's a experimentation, right? We don't know exactly how this business will unfold. We do have an overarching vision that we're trying to accomplish, but you know, whether it be speaking engagements, creating new service offerings, creating new packages, recruiting new team members. Um, this was definitely a year of just let's get out and get active. Let's get out and spread the message, see what happens. we've learned a ton. We've had great opportunities, but I think it'd be fair to say that like we feel like we have not even scratched the surface of what we can do with Sovereign. I mean, really, um, businesses are about solving problems for other people and other organizations, and we feel like everyone is everyone has a problem. The problem is money, specifically money that is losing its purchasing power over time. And so to be able to contribute to this mission and help solve problems for business owners all over the country, over time, all over the world, it's a great feeling to be able to wake up every day and contribute to this.
Yeah, and along with that, you can just do things. You actually have to do the things though. So there's a lot of people. I think I was talking about this on the last podcast I did with Eric, who is going out making basically a decentralized marketplace, and we were talking about how people think they want to go work in Bitcoin because they think they're going to have some equivalent of their cushy corporate job where they just walk into an office, work for like 2 hours a day, drink coffee, get a paycheck every 2 weeks, and are basically not asked to do that much. And then you just go home, have your weekends or whatever. And it's like you have to come. There is no fiat job in Bitcoin. No one has 30 years established business with tons of money to throw at stuff. And if they do, it's the people that started that business that did it from ground zero that are reaping the rewards. They're not plugging some. And by the way, they're Bitcoiners. They understand the value of labor and profit and loss statements and these sorts of things. So you're not just going to get some cushy gig where you're plugged into some position, hammer a paycheck, don't do that much, and now you're working in Bitcoin. So you get to talk to Bitcoiners, be around Bitcoiners. Like you actually have to come and work your ass off and probably spend a lot of your own money at the start, and unless you're going to some big established company or some place that got a ton of VC money or something like that, the odds are if you want to just do things and not just be, whatever the equivalent is of what you were doing just in the Bitcoin world, you're actually going to have to go earn that. And you're going to have to work really hard and it's going to take really long and you're going to be really frustrated. And not everything is going to go how you think it will. And so if you sort of value your security and your fiat mining and stacking your sats and all that stuff, like this is not the thing to come do. So,
I would
um,
I would jump in there and say you can just do things. And I'm personally speaking from experience. This year, I've done a bunch of things, and let me just say I've underestimated the production, what it takes to create a good podcast, as well as X spaces and live. And so John and I joke. He holds me to a high standard of like, yeah, you can just do things, but come on, like like me, like I started the year afraid to do an X space and like, like the quality of the show and so forth. And I met people and partners and, I won't name drop now, but like we met people live on the show and then over time I got comfortable and better at it. But there was some, some hack jobs where I did a bad job and it's no, there's accountability too of like, hey, did you forget to hit record or, hey, like this isn't working. You actually do need a professional or, colleague, somebody support to do a production of a podcast like this, or if you want a high quality X space. So some of this is, and I kind of go back to as a startup, as a founder, you can just do things. You're free to do anything, but you got to do it well. And then the next question is, what are your core competencies? And are you going to put the effort to like fill the gap? If you've never done it before, that's okay. But what are you going to do to make sure that for the first time you do it, it's successful and professional? Because that's the other thing is you can work in Bitcoin, but are you doing professional quality work, which is the standard we're all holding ourselves to? And if you like say, oh, this is my first podcast, and you're like, it's not going well, it's like, okay, you could fill the gap. You got to put the work in. You got to do the reps. That's a proof of work. But there's been a lot of experimentation too. Sometimes you have to choose your battles and say, okay, you can do a lot of things, but I'm going to go ahead and double down on my background. And I'll give an example. It's like I came from software as a service sales, consulting. I know how to sell. I've taken all the training, and I've also mentored and helped other people. And that's why I feel like, okay, if I'm going to contribute today, no training required, and add value to this team, what sets Jeff apart from Brandon and John's core competencies? And then if I'm going to build the team for salespeople, we're seeing a lot of success with mid-career folks who say, yes, 10 plus years track record of success, Fiat credentials maybe. But the point is, if they're on the mission, they understand Bitcoin, and then this is the year they want to you know, Jeff Booth talked about cognitive dissonance. Like, do you really want to continue fiat mining, or just everything in you need to be on the Bitcoin mission? Perfect. But if you're going to join a team or start something, shouldn't you be doing what you're qualified for, your core competencies to add value on day one? And that's where we've seen a lot of really interesting sales professionals say, you want to help educate business owners and operators. And by the way, there's a long tail here. The opportunity is like 34 plus million just in the US alone. We have somebody in Argentina. We have people in Europe. I mean, so like I've got people that reach out to me from Asia sometimes and in other regions. So effectively, there's no limit on spreading the good word of you know Bitcoin business integration. But anyways, I digress. I'm talking about how this year we've done a lot, but in addition to just doing things, you have to like actually say how much production value goes into a podcast to make it a good podcast. Same thing with an X space, same thing with preparing for a panel in real life. And with that, John, you did a fantastic job in DC. I was there with you for the American Dream panel. Talk to me about like preparation, like what went into that, because that was like knocked it out of the park from an audience perspective.
Just bring something different, a different perspective to that conference. And the good news was, I'd been to several Bitcoin conferences in the past. There's a lot of, very technical analysis, talking about the technology, talking about adoption, talking about nation states or corporations and treasury companies. And so what we decided to talk about in my panel is I want to talk about culture, Bitcoin's impact on culture. And so the theme of that panel was, okay, the American dream seems to be out of reach or getting out of reach, particularly for young people. Could we envision how Bitcoin plays into a new American dream? And so the preparation for that was finding great panelists who could speak to their own experience with Bitcoin, how it's changed their perspective on life in general, life specifically in America, and we just built good rapport. I prepared slides. I did a little bit of like practice beforehand. You know, I just felt like we Bitcoin is bigger than just money. It also helps kind of rewire your perspective. It changes your time preference or your time horizon on when things will come. And so that was just a great experience. It felt like my entree or my kind of entrance into the arena to advocate for Bitcoin. And I just think that, like you said, Jeff, our initial cracks at things, our initial attempts at things aren't always going to be the best, but I felt like I put my best foot forward on that. And I know that going forward, I want to do more. I want to hopefully be a keynote speaker at one of these events. Go to non-Bitcoin conferences, just general business conferences, and speak about Bitcoin, about money, about culture. And I feel like this year was all about laying the foundation, making multiple different attempts, putting ourselves out there, getting feedback from the marketplace. Next year is going to be continue to build that foundation, but then finding ways that we can grow and improve across the board. And that's a great thing about business is that everybody can, you're competing with all kinds of different other businesses, all kinds of different other opportunities for people to spend their time on. How do you stand out? How do you become the best in your industry at what you do? So that's going to be the continued process for us our leadership team, our entire team in general, is how do we stand out? How do we get better? How do we over deliver for everyone that we work with?
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting as we've sort of made this pivot to a model where we're going out and bringing people in as opposed to in person going out, bringing people in, actual person to person outreach, and just to really the goal is, John, you touched on it, to ingratiate ourselves into the sort of business community at large and to try to penetrate that. And there's all these trade shows, there's all these different conferences, there's so many things you can go to, but there's never any discussion about Bitcoin or the money or anything like that. Even um when I was working in Fiat land, it was there weren't even discussions about like managing working capital or how to handle your finances as a business. They didn't even really touch on the subject at all. It's like almost so taboo that you talk more about the industry or sourcing products or your margins, which are important too. By the way, all this stuff's important, but just this general concept of how are you denominating your business? What's your money? Like, what's your treasury strategy? And it's never even talked about. It's never even brought up. And uh, I, I really hope we can get out into that world and actually start challenging some people on this because I don't know about you guys, but most of the time when I'm talking to people from my former life or business owners or anything, the idea they haven't even thought about their treasury strategy. Like they haven't even. It's sort of like, what do you mean? I either take my cash and I pay down debt, or I put it on the balance sheet and put it in a CD, and I beg my banker for an interest bearing account, and then my banker tries to fight me and get me in a non interest bearing account, and it's like this is well that wherever that money lose ends up, you're losing some sort of real rate of purchasing power. And so um it's it is odd that it's just, well, it's not odd, it's intentional. They they don't want business owners, they don't want people thinking about this stuff. They just want the mindless drones to take the dollars, hold the dollars, leave them there, get debased, be stolen from. Because at the end of the day, the U.S. government, when they print money, when they debase money, as Bitcoiners know, they're not only stealing from uh, uh, taxpayers and citizens and individuals, they're stealing from anyone holding dollars. And that's, as Bitcoiners, we talk about exporting inflation. And really, all that means is, well, other places are holding our dollars or buying our dollars because they're better than their local currency. And then that just gives us an even greater opportunity to debase the currency without reflecting it in the prices as much. And the same is true for businesses. And 99% of businesses have maybe they've thought about it, maybe they realize holding dollars is a losing proposition, but um, many of them have just never even thought about this topic, and it's never discussed. So I really hope we can make some progress in bringing up this topic and generating some discussion around this next year as well, because it just seems non-existent.
Yeah. So we're at the end of the year 2025, and we go into next year. And what I like about next year is it's the back half of the decade. So what's your 5 year plan? 2026 to 2030 is 5 years, and that helps business owners. And I come from a digital transformation as a, again, an umbrella consulting term, digital transformation of capital. Who's helping the small business owners, right? And I know I think we've spoken about it before, but 25 years ago, the turn of the century, is do you have a website and an email address? And that was like, again, like that tripped people up back then. Now we laugh at that. That's so obvious. So the question is, what does it mean to be a sovereign business owner, right? And again, our brand is pronounced sovereign, but we just cut one E out to make it a brand. So, but what does it mean to be this, and there's the book, The Sovereign Individual, right? And so like, what does it mean to take the lessons and the values from that book, port it over to Bitcoin and apply it to your business, right? And so I'm going to get a blog post out there on our website soon. And, there's the sovereign individual, there's the Bitcoin standard. These are solid readings. We of course have recommended reading lists if you'd like to reach out. Um, but again, the point 25 years later is, okay, you have a website, an email address. Are you running a node and do you have a lightning channel? Are you able to pay for things and, send and receive value without someone in the middle? And I think this has been a great year from a development from, I would say it was a Block and Square and Cash App, so Jack Dorsey's company. And the point of that being, we all know Cash App, you can, buy and spend Bitcoin. Square is a terminal for, let's say coffee shops, etc. But all of a sudden in the last, I think it's 3 months, 2 months. Yeah, the last 2 months, they did a major rollout with 4 million potential, existing customers. And it wasn't just sending and receiving Bitcoin. It's, like all four is like Bitcoin to Bitcoin, Bitcoin to cash, cash to Bitcoin, and cash to cash. Like, so basically what's amazing about this is you as a customer could spend fiat and then this merchant could accept Bitcoin and any combination thereof. And another development I saw the other day was you have the consumers themselves, the Cash App users, which by the way has like 65 million customers. Like, what's when we talk about how big is the user base? Let's say there's 4 million Square terminals or merchants or customers in the US, but Cash App has like 65 million, huge number. And if they're going around uh, asking the merchants to accept Bitcoin, now you have Bitcoin as money, medium of exchange adoption. And again, where do we fit in? We're looking for businesses that want to do something, have a Bitcoin treasury strategy, protect their savings, think of Bitcoin as money as a store of value, or accept it. So, accept Bitcoin as payments. If they're Square customers, that's really cool that the technology is easy. But if you haven't started your journey, like what next? What if you accumulate a lot where you need to have, protocols, insurance, education around it. So again, we see ourselves as, the last mile, additional support, a partner to many great companies in the space. But also, we talk to customers that say, "I'm in an industry that's forbidden to use certain, Square or other things," and they say, "Oh, that's exactly why you should run your own node and be in control of your stack." And so, yeah, it's been a really what I enjoy about this year is that every customer is a puzzle because you have to really listen to them and say, and again, we have so much to share about Bitcoin ourselves, our team, but the question is where we have to meet our customer where they are and then quantify or qualify like where do they want to go? Like what is the outcomes in the journey they want to go on? And that's when we can see if we have like the ability to help somebody. And so
Well,
yeah,
yeah. I mean, you brought up the point of people coming in and saying, "Do you have a website strategy? Do you have an email address strategy?" And that's that's an important part of understanding the transformation that's going on here as we move from this it pseudo digital banking system to a fully digital banking system and the transformation that's going to happen. And then you have something like Bitcoin where you don't even need a bank. Like forget, maybe you need a bank if you want to access dollars, but in theory you could operate totally on Bitcoin. And that's kind of what happened with the internet, right? Is like all these brick and mortar businesses, the Blockbusters to Netflix, the um, Best Buys to Amazon, or how many businesses, brick and mortar businesses, did Amazon put out of business? And if you had someone along the way going, "Hey, what's your strategy as this change that's coming is going to happen, and let's guide us through you," or excuse me, let us guide you through this. I mean, what would that be worth? That's invaluable. And there's still people today that go into companies and do website design, and there's still people that come in and do the IT to run the email servers and set everyone up in the company for all this stuff. So there, as the digital transformation, as we went from snail mail to digital mail, someone still has to run that technology because there's a group of people that don't understand how to do that. And it's going to be no different with Bitcoin as we democratize money, um, as we digitalize money, that there's going to need to be expertise and people to handle that for businesses, to show them how to do it and to take full advantage of it. And that 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 is invaluable to those companies, to the ones that are willing to see where it's going. And then the ones that aren't willing to see where it's going, well, then you end up like Blockbuster, then you end up like Kodak, then you end up like pick your
Let me hop
business.
in.
Yeah.
So sometimes when we listen to Bitcoin podcasts, and then Brandon, you have your own Bitcoin podcast, it's a lot of echo chamber or the same people, same ideas. And so therefore we take for granted uh, what we know, right? What we've heard. So I'll speak from personal experience. I've learned so much from Bitcoin podcasts, and I have my favorite people and
Yeah, make
educators.
sure you get your 40 hours per weekend.
Yeah, exactly. So then you're saying, well, what's our opportunity? It's to leave the echo chamber. And there's 34 million businesses. There, again, even the most popular Bitcoin podcasts aren't getting the mainstream adoption. We can go into different industries. This also is talking about like this year we went to the Bitcoin conference in Vegas, and we went to Prague and to DC. And Brandon, you and I met in real life for the first time at Bitcoin for Corporations, Michael Saylor's conference, Strategies conference in Orlando. And that's great. We learned a lot. We also helped us put into context our market segmentation strategy for ourselves. But I think for 2026, it's outside of PubKey. It's go to different conferences, but also bring small, medium-sized business owners in DC and New York into PubKey, right? So like one thing is to use PubKey as an educational place. And if we can create meetups and so forth, you can get community members who are not already, you're not preaching to the converted, you're educating people who are business owners who could benefit from adopting Bitcoin, like the Compass Coffees, right? But then the next thing is, if we go to conferences next year, and again, like I'm looking at my own calendar and thinking like, where am I going to go seasonally? Instead of saying, oh yeah, of course I'm going to go to Prague and wherever Bitcoin's magazines conferences is, maybe not. Maybe this coming year it's going to industry conferences and helping educate and to be the lone bitcoiner in a room full of people that are curious but just haven't had access to us and don't have the same media diet we have. They're not on Nostr or X or Twitter. They're not listening to the podcasts. Hopefully they'll listen to our podcast, but the point is, like, we have to remember that we have something valuable to add that's unique point of view, and that there's a lot of people that are well-meaning that just don't know where to find the signal. And so that's what fires me up, is to say, wait a minute, I get to get out of bed in the morning. I'm on the mission. I get to help people. We have a differentiated point of view. And all we need to do is put ourselves in rooms where people should come to us to be like, oh, that's really interesting. I've got so many questions. I haven't done the work, or I don't know where to find the answer. Again, they don't, we take things for granted because we listen to, certain podcasts or read certain things. And I just have to remind myself, at least, that if we put ourselves in the right room with the right people, we can really help educate and like fill in some knowledge gaps. And, yeah, I find that valuable.
So I want to go back to this point of digital transformation really, because as a business owner, if you're listening to this conversation, you may be asking yourself, why should I pay attention to Bitcoin? And I think a great parallel is that in 2000, between 2000 and 2005, business owners were asking themselves, why should I pay attention to the internet? It's a similar type of question, just 20 to 25 years later. Technology and major technology breakthroughs force everyone to adapt. I think it's the innovator's dilemma, Clayton Christensen, that Basically, the phrase is adapt or die, and that's just the reality. You need to be aware of technology that is disrupting everyone, and the internet was certainly that technology. That throughout the 2000s, we had the internet bubble, and the narrative was, oh, there's these niche companies called internet companies, and you know they're playing around with this weird technology over there, but it's not really going to disrupt anything. Over the 20 to 25 years that have ensued, clearly the internet disrupted every single business on the planet. And what we're here to tell you, in our perspective with Sovereign, is that a similar type of technological wave is happening right now with Bitcoin, and you need to move, you need to adapt. Um, it's it's just one of those things that you have to deal with as a business owner. You can't afford to ignore huge technology disruptions like this if you want to survive and thrive as a business and as an individual. So, over the next 5 to 10 years here at Sovereign, like we want to be your partner. We want to walk the path with you as we all adjust to this wave of technological disruption. I mean, Bitcoin is not going anywhere. Obviously, it's it's a topic of conversation in every nation state and every boardroom. And so let's have that conversation today so that you don't, get caught up in the wave in a bad way. You don't drown in the wave, right? We want you to be able to manage this change and this innovation, and then thrive as the years go on and Bitcoin continues to proliferate around the world.
Yeah, and how many businesses back in the day were, something.com, like Amazon.com, and now they're just Amazon. Like you'll have it's we're just going through the same thing like 20 years later right now, that you'll you'll need to learn about the internet, you'll need to learn how to set up a website. And I'm not the first person to make this analogy, so it's not some brilliant insight, but um, you are going to have to learn about Bitcoin. You are going to have to understand it. And wouldn't you be much happier if there was someone to help you on that journey, to help you do it, and did a good job at it? There's just
Let me ask a
absolutely
few.
yeah.
Let me ask a few common questions. Why Bitcoin? Why not crypto? Why Bitcoin? Why not blockchain? Right? And I do have a business, but we're in quicksand. It's not going well. Can Bitcoin save me? Right? Like, and these are common questions we have internally. And the point of this podcast is to hopefully reach a new audience and prime you for some stuff. And so I'll go first, but let's go around the room. But the first question was, why Bitcoin, not crypto? And the reason why Sovereign is Bitcoin only is everyone on the team has done the work and arrived at Bitcoin maximalism. There is not going to be another Bitcoin. There won't be a replacement. This is, it's fixed at 21 million. It's got the strongest blockchain from a power perspective of an investment. Like, it's literally, the market has spoken. So again, it's that you can't
It's got the strongest network. I
network.
mean,
Yeah, proof
yeah.
of work network, digital scarcity tied to the real world. There can't be a 51% attack. When the blocks validate, that's it. There's no going back. You can't counterfeit a Bitcoin. When people ask questions, whether in good or bad faith, say, oh, there's no intrinsic value, or it's worthless. It's like, perfect. Send me a Bitcoin for free. Send me a Bitcoin then. You won't do that because there is a value. The market has spoken. And again, you can't counterfeit it, and so it's digital scarcity. And so again, we've go down many paths here, but Bitcoin, not crypto, and that's important because when our customers find us, that's wonderful. But we can also choose our customers. If our customer insists on crypto, we can we can pass on the project and say that you're not for us. And so that's really important, I think, from a personal and from a company standpoint. Is when you say, like, what are our values and what do we stand for and what do we want to do, it's also knowing what you're not going to do, right? So we're not interested in crypto. or alternative blockchains. It's Bitcoin and maybe layer two, like Lightning, but it's Bitcoin only. And I think we all have different answers. I could digress and go into tangents, but I'll try not to. But I wanted to say that is like we have the ability to fire our customer if our customer is insisting on going down a scam route, or or just really misguided and insistent. Like we just pass on that. Because again, like what is Sovereign, and what attracted me to joining Sovereign was, oh, I don't want to be the only Bitcoin maximalist at a big four consultancy accounting firm, whatever these places are. You say, oh, you're John, Brandon, Jeff, you're Bitcoin experts, perfect, join our team. And then they say, there's a huge client that wants us to do some shady stuff. It's like, well, I don't want to be around people that don't understand what the real mission is. So that's really helps our like North Star, and what we're doing here is it's Bitcoin only. There's no crypto. Also, by the way, I don't think we've name dropped any of our partners, but the next question is, where can I buy Bitcoin? Okay, we Sovereign are not going to sell you Bitcoin, but we will point you to a reputable exchange, and we have vetted partners, and our reputation matters, and it's Bitcoin only. So we're going to keep you on the straight and narrow, because as John was saying, like we want to work with you in the year 2030, 5 years from now, and we want you to flourish, to prosper, and to be. How much value is there in avoiding pitfalls? you know, there's the opportunity cost of not wasting time here. Like, how many more years are you going to go by where you still don't understand this and you don't take action? But the other one is to take action and then to work with, to have a company or a startup. We don't want you to lose anything either. So the point is, if you work with us, we have vetted partners. We'll keep you on the straight and narrow. And because we've all arrived at Bitcoin maximalism, that's a prerequisite to even joining the team. When people apply this year, if I saw Web3 or anything like that, it's like, you know, that's an easy no. John, you're gonna say something?
Yeah, so to answer the question, why Bitcoin and not crypto, it's because Bitcoin is a new monetary system and it is better money than the money we have been using for our entire lives. Every other alternative cryptocurrency is not solving the problem that Bitcoin solves, which is they're trying to have smart contracts, NFTs, and all these other things. Bitcoin is the only cryptocurrency network that has solved the problem that everyone has. All these other crypto assets are trying to solve other problems, but they're clearly not as important as the money problem. So, you know, to answer your other question, Jeff, is Bitcoin going to save me if my business is struggling? I would frankly say probably not, because what Bitcoin teaches you is that you have to be a net producer. You have to be profitable. If you are an unprofitable business, sure, maybe Bitcoin will help you, in terms of its price appreciation, its value appreciation versus fiat, but it will not solve a business that is unprofitable. So really what we're trying to move people towards and our clients towards is, you're a profitable business. You've worked your ass off for many years. You spent countless hours building a valuable business that your customers value. Now let's preserve that value that you've already created in a form of money that cannot be devalued and cannot be debased. That's why Bitcoin. We are helping you understand that you can do everything right, but if you use the wrong form of money, you can still fail, and that's really detrimental to the economy. That's detrimental to our lives and can be crushing to the entrepreneur who, put their reputation on the line, spent countless hours of their life and still could not survive. We should, any business that is capable of becoming profitable should be able to operate for as long as they want, right? If you use the correct form of money. If you use a form of money that isn't going to siphon away your purchasing power over time. So that would be my answer.
If what you just touched on goes back to when I try to assemble teams to meet the customer where they're at, and to help them, one of the cool things about Sovereign is, is it too late checking in on the status of a company. Is it a brand new company, or are they existing company? Are they currently successful? Are they too far gone? Right? Because again, Bitcoin's not get rich quick, so we can't throw you a life raft if you're already drowning. Like it, you might again. That's a tough conversation to have. But if the company's too far gone, maybe we need to wait for your next venture to help get you on the Bitcoin standard to begin with. But what I wanted to say was, Brandon, your previous career as a banker, and when I assembled a team to meet with prospective customers, we're not just Bitcoiners, and that's one dimensional. Only thing we want to talk to you about is Bitcoin as new money. The other thing is to say that we have a team with a variety of backgrounds to meet different use cases, industries, and so forth, and TradFi, traditional finance. So to meet a business where they're at and to say, would you like some analysis from a Bitcoin lens? But how do we know? How do we measure whether your company is too far gone or you're healthy? And like, what would it mean to preserve your capital, your time and energy in Bitcoin? And so, Brandon, I don't know if you want to talk about your former career as a banker, and again, well-meaning small medium-sized businesses that got caught in debt traps and fiat games where they don't even like it's like they don't know what gravity is, and you come in and you either try to help them or you can't. But if you could introduce them to a new concept like Bitcoin, you said, you may not be aware of how things work, but there could be a solution. I don't know if you want to talk about how your experience at Sovereign, based on your prior life, how that's changed conversations.
Yeah, getting to see what happens to these businesses up close and personal when they get crushed by inflation. And the most insidious part is a lot of these businesses, um they have inflation, and then they have to increase their prices. They have to price those, or pass those price increases on to their customer. And sometimes, not sometimes, a lot of times that forces them to completely change their business model. Like, okay, we raised our prices, but we lost this amount of sales. Okay, now we have to go find new business. Now we have to go find someone else to sell to. Whereas if they were able to just use a money that held its purchasing power, they wouldn't have to increase those prices. They wouldn't have lost that customer base, and they can actually focus on running a business. So many of these business owners end up in a situation where they are now they're turned into either people trying to find some sort of financial game where they can uh, tap debt markets or issue equity or whatever to sort of recapitalize their business because they lost some customers and they need to plug a hole, or they want to go borrow more money and now they're more in debt, and that becomes a self-fulfilling doom loop, and it adds all these different complexities that take away from just the core idea of what John was talking about earlier of just running a profitable business and storing your profits in real money. And unfortunately, uh, 99% of the world hasn't woken up to the reality that their unit of account is a problem, or if they know it's a problem or inherently see it as a problem, they don't know the solution. And because of that, we have high volatility when measured in the unit of account that most of the world is using with something like Bitcoin. And it's very difficult for business owners to plan in the short term with a high volatility asset when their unit of account isn't something else. And so the real value of Bitcoin is getting it on your balance sheet now, 5 years from now, 6 years from now, whatever it is, then having the optionality to have a war chest and have the reserves to then be able to check out of those games, not having to worry. Yes, you still have to run a business. Yes, you still have to have profitable margins, but you've now given yourself the ability to weather the storms of the unit of account and dollar price increases and not have to go worry about finding a new customer base or growing to just survive. That you built up this war chest for yourself that can insulate you against those problems. and you can get back to focusing on just running your business and not having to deal with all these other problems of inflation because you've solved that problem over a 5-year time frame by using a better form of money. And that realization to me also framed the way I view what we're doing at Sovereign as like, listen, this is not a 2026 success story or a 2025 success story. That really we're going to know how we're doing the measuring stick of what we did and the fruits of our labor. That's going to be seen in 2030. That's down the road. And being able to provide that framework and that outlook to know that um, we personally use a better form of money. I personally use a better form of money. And now I can look 5 years down the road and know that that will be the judgment day for what we built here at Sovereign.
Yeah, here's how I describe the promise of for business owners, which is the previous paradigm, the fiat paradigm was you have to build the best products and services uh, in your region or in your industry, and you have to be a financial engineer and play the fiat games and get access to debt capital or equity capital. So that gives you two massive challenges versus the Bitcoin paradigm is you just have to do number one. You just have to focus on building the best products and service that you possibly can. And then you store your value in Bitcoin. You don't have to play the debt game. You don't have to play the financing game. You probably don't even need to play the VC game, which is, can be pernicious in its own right. That's the promise of Bitcoin is focus on your craft, focus on delivering the very best product or service that you possibly can, serve your customers to the best of your ability, save in Bitcoin, sleep well at night, enjoy your life, right? With a long enough time horizon, you will have success. I know that might seem crazy to say. Like, oh, how can you be so sure that Bitcoin will do that for business owners? It's just math, right? It's just math. There's only ever going to be 21 million Bitcoin. There's going to be, there's undefined or unlimited amount of fiat money in the world. I know where I want to store my value, and I want to see the world where businesses of all sizes can have success without having to play the fiat games, the financial engineering games, get close to the financial system, the legacy financial system. That doesn't have to be a requirement anymore. You can just be a great farmer, baker, butcher, you know, tallow maker, whatever you want to do, whatever service or product you want to provide, you can just do that, save in Bitcoin, and you will survive. And then over time, you should be able to survive and thrive.
I would say a lot of these business owners who know that their money is being debased inherently, and looking out 5 to 10 years, it's just more of the same, right? It's like I'm gonna have to be doing this 5 years from now anyway. So then you load up on debt. You're like, well, I might as well get this free money. I might as well get this free money now. Everyone thinks it's free. It's of course not free. There's interest um and that's always a pain to pay back. And then sometimes the loan comes due. Most of the time, it just gets rolled over. But um, to that point, that you're like, I need to take advantage of this money, go buy something, go spend the dollars that are there because what am I going to do? Put it on my balance sheet? Like, no, I have to grow. I have to go expand this business, even if you don't want to grow. And actually, what's been cool about doing this podcast throughout the year is talking to business owners who are on a Bitcoin standard, who are selling their stuff for Bitcoin. They're like, I don't necessarily need to get that big. I like what I'm doing. I like the income it's providing me. I don't have to grow if I don't want to. And you know what? A lot of them don't want to grow. And that's an opportunity that's afforded to you as well. But you just don't have that as a business owner in today's world if you're using dollars. And that's, save for some exceptions. There's obviously businesses that have great margins, do very well, that are uber successful. But for 90% of the businesses out there that are basically hand to mouth or pretty close, that are running a business to basically survive, to provide for their family, not as a way to build wealth and to transfer wealth through the generations to their family, that many of them are just doing it because they need a way to put food on the table. And those are the ones who say, I have this money, I need to go spend it, or I should borrow this money and go put it in here because I know I need to grow, and because I'm not going to be in a position in 5 years from now where if I don't grow, uh, I'm not going to survive. And so that it really just reframes your ability to look toward the future, and then the way you treat debt. Like maybe I don't need to go borrow. Maybe I just can take some of my profits, put in Bitcoin, put on the balance sheet, and wait, and not know that 4 years from now, 5 years from now, I will have had to grow just to survive.
Yeah, well said. And one of the things I was going to mention was if you're a business owner or operator and you understand what inflation is, it puts you in that position where you say, do I need to raise my prices to keep up with inflation, which could lead to lower sales? Do I have to dilute the quality of my product or shrinkflation? Do I keep everything the same but just shrink the size of portions, right? And again, but that's all has to do with being on a fiat dollar standard. Like for example, the $5 foot long, that's impossible. So what are they trying to do now? Like a $5 cookie or some garbage? Like that whole franchise model, that business model is broken because they peg themselves to a currency or dollar that measuring a ruler that had no limits, right? So
Dollar
again,
menu.
yeah.
Yeah.
So if you say, hey, as a business, I have $1 million in the bank. Great. Out of how much? A million. You're a millionaire, but what's the denominator? Still fiat dollars. Well, that's an ever expanding pie. So it would be much better to have a Bitcoin on your balance sheet out of 21 million. And again, we talk about the only wrong amount is zero. So when we meet with new people that haven't done the Bitcoin journey personally, what the best is when someone has done the work on a personal level and then they want to apply it to their business. That's a natural progression. If we meet a business owner operator who's new to Bitcoin and says, I'm going to use my business as a vehicle to do something and learn about it, that's really cool because then they can learn along the way and maybe stack something on their personal, family, retail level. Um, but what we always say is the wrong allocation is zero. You have to have some skin in the game. But to be conservative and realistic here, as many people say, is start with 1% of your portfolio or up to 5%. That actually is good advice. If you're going from zero to do something, take action, download a wallet, buy something on an exchange, transfer it, take self-custody, learn along the way. But again, where we come in, Sovereign, is to say, okay, as a business, once you're off zero, do you have a path and a plan? And once your allocation is actually pretty material, then you have to have security and other elements. Like, what if you're a cash flowing restaurant? A common question we get is, okay, I got a lot of cash, I got a 6 month runway. Should the rest of it be in Bitcoin to preserve my purchasing power? And again, these are private conversations. But what if that stack gets pretty large? Then you have to take in more considerations about insurance, multi sig. Like, this is where it gets interesting. But again, everyone has to start their journey from somewhere. And we always say that the wrong amount is zero. It's always good to take a crawl, walk, run approach. And then what I also like is we talk about like at least a 5 year outlook. What's cool about the next 5 years is in 2028, there's a halvening. And so if you don't know what that is, the block reward gets cut in half. So if you were to have Bitcoin from prior, number usually goes up, so over time. And so it's a nice forcing function, something we can, share more information about. But I like what the next 5 years looks like, considering if people work with us now and take action, I mean, we can look at the last 5 years. If you had got on the Bitcoin standard in 2020, where are you today? Now we can't promise the future based on the past, but it's pretty, I'm just simplifying this as best I can is to say, not, oh, I noticed Bitcoin when it was first invented. No one did. And it's changed so much since. And so that's not even a helpful model. Bitcoin has matured and integrated into the financial system and regulations, and everything's modernizing so much that we don't really need to talk about Bitcoin before 2020. Let's just talk about this decade. And so I always say, like when was the best time to plant a tree? Right, 2020. And if you didn't do that, the second best time is today. So that's the opportunity, and what I enjoy about this mission is having conversations going into 2026. Say it's okay if you haven't taken action yet, but what's your plan to get off of zero and do something? And education is a key point, but there has to be a use case or some like value. And and applying it to a business is really cool, where a business owner operators can tell us, look, I've been very busy with my business. I've heard about Bitcoin. I'm not against it. I just haven't done the work. And then the question is, who can I trust? Because again, crypto has a bunch of grifters and scammers, and there's all these untested blockchains. So you say, well, who are the Bitcoin guys? And one thing I really liked, Brandon, was one of our colleagues had a sibling who's in the corporate world, and the sibling was dismissing, the family, like I'm trying to promote Bitcoin at the Thanksgiving table, and everyone's biased against me, the messenger, because I'm related to them. So the question is, if you really do care about people in your immediate circle, who can you trust to like plug in as the Bitcoin consultants? And it's really, this is again, looking back on this year alone, is um, I got tapped with a referral partner who said, I want you to help my family. And Brandon, we had a colleague tap you to say, would you please talk to my sibling who works at a corporation? And if my memory's correct, it was you that had to say Bitcoin is the best performing asset the last 10, 15 years for the sibling to have the light bulb go off, even though our colleague has said that 20 times. It's just like the messenger, there's some bias against it. So what's the point of all this? There are people, hopefully listeners, that have people in their immediate circle where they're like, we want them to understand Bitcoin and apply it, get the benefits, but you know, who can we call that's not myself, right? And I'm always flattered when it's our team.
I was going to say, if you want to outsource your orange pilling, right, you can become a referral partner with Sovereign. Outsource your orange pilling to professional orange pillars at Sovereign. We are happy to sit down, have those conversations, remove some of the emotion that may, occur, and people who are you are close to are not always the best people to speak about money with. It's a charged topic, so we'll lower the temperature, have a calm, logical conversation, and we'll take as long as you need to get through the different. There's different mental blocks that we all just kind of grew up and money was what it was. Nobody growing up, at least in my circle, really ever talked about money, talked about the dollar, talked about the Federal Reserve. It was never a dinner table conversation. It was never a conversation amongst friends. As I got into college, we didn't talk about the monetary system. So we are talking about it now, and Bitcoin kind of forced us to re-examine our thoughts and re-examine our beliefs around money. So actually, what I wanted to throw out there for you guys is a little bit of a thought experiment. Uh, let's pretend that I'm a business owner, and I'm starting to learn about Bitcoin and think about Bitcoin, but I have several things that are on my mind that like don't make sense to me. So can you help me walk through these things? So you're telling me that instead of raising my prices forever and increasing my employee salaries forever, I'm going to be decreasing my prices forever in Bitcoin. I'm going to be decreasing my employee salaries forever. Like, isn't that aren't people going to be upset? One of my employees come to me and say, I made less this year than I did last year. You know, what would you tell me? Because I feel like, shouldn't I always be getting a raise? Shouldn't I always be, increasing my prices a little bit? What would you say to that?
Well, I would say that what's the reason you want to raise? Is because you want more purchasing power. It's not to have more dollars. If $1 could buy you the Taj Mahal, you wouldn't care if you had $1 in your bank account, or if $100 million. Well, it's Taj Mahal is probably like $100 billion. If you had $100 billion in your account and you could buy the Taj Mahal with that, well, then you would want the $100 billion. So really what you're talking about is an increase in your purchasing power. You're not actually talking about an increase of the number of units. If you wanted more units of currency, you could convert to Japanese yen tomorrow, and then you'd have a lot more units of currency. You can't buy anything else. You can't buy anything more, rather. You just have more units of currency. So you don't want more units of currency. You want more purchasing power. And that's why you want to raise. And under an inflationary monetary system, inflationary environment, you constantly have to increase your wages to keep up with the increased cost of goods so that you have an increase in purchasing power. However, with Bitcoin, when you are not increasing the supply of money, or you are very slowly increasing the supply of money until eventually the supply of money will go to supply of money increase will go to zero, things are actually getting cheaper. So just because you're not getting a higher number of Bitcoin doesn't mean you can't buy more stuff. And as you get more and more Bitcoin, or maybe even less Bitcoin, you can still buy more things with it. And so, as long as your purchasing power is increasing, that's really what you want, not more units of the currency.
Yeah, and John, if I could add into this, I would say this creates a market or opportunity for us is executive coaching and again helping business owner operators, employers with mental models around Bitcoin as a unit of account, which is to say, are we still talking about paying your employees in dollars, or are we talking about paying your employees in Bitcoin or Satoshi, sats, and understanding the difference there? And then it goes into a conversation of inflation and deflation, right? And so, yeah, I think the opportunity here is, are we just measuring everything in dollars, or the paradigm shift or the opportunity here is to change your unit of account, your denominator. And if you could start measuring, we talk about cash flow. What about SATS flow? So income coming in, but also paying people. And if your employees were paid, again, thought experiment, if your employees were paid in gold rather than dollars or pesos, wouldn't that protect their purchasing power? And the most simple, and I'm oversimplifying it, but if Bitcoin is digital gold or the digital transformation of gold, or gold I can email you, or gold that your millennial employees will be, if you want to attract young talent, I'm sure they'd like to be paid in Bitcoin rather than gold. But the point is, gold and Bitcoin are very similar right now in terms of the debasement trade and protecting purchasing power. And so it's a long conversation, but it's a great conversation, John, about this is part of the educational journey, and also like picking a use case to take action to say, I had a conversation this year with a business owner who's a customer, and he was like, I love my employees. They're like family. And, I'm like, perfect. How are you rewarding them? Was it a 401k match? Is that really enough? Does that really inspire loyalty? Do you think they're going to stick around for 2% 401k in dollars? What if you were to give them, Bitcoin? Like what if you were to give them something that preserves their purchasing power and maybe educate them? We could help do a private webinar educational series for your employees, an all hands meeting where Sovereign comes in and educates and answers some of these questions, so we can not just do private executive coaching about mental models, but also your rank and file, your employee base, is to say, hey, I'm a small business owner and I'm going to start rewarding you with stacking some sats, some Bitcoin as a benefit for working here. I think that's, I think that's an amazing conversation. And if you can get people understanding this, I think that's a uh, competitive offering. So there's a lot there.
So if I may maintain my role for a minute here. So I get that, purchasing power is more important than actual number of units. But you guys are telling me that I should self custody my own money. Like that's kind of scary. I'm used to just using a bank, I don't really get the whole key thing. Why should I be my own bank? Why should I self custody my Bitcoin? That seems a little scary. And you know what? Maybe I'll just let Bank of America custody my Bitcoin.
Because you have control over your money. You can send it anytime you want. So there's practical reasons. Just if Bank America controls your Bitcoin, you probably can't move it on a Saturday or a Sunday, and you have to wait till Monday. And even if they do send it, like now, like we have Venmo or these other things that you go out to dinner Saturday night with your friends and everyone just Venmo me. And it's like, okay, now I withdraw that to my account. Well, I can't actually use that money until Monday morning, maybe Tuesday morning, depending on what kind of arrangement you have, because the bank clearing mechanism is slow and archaic and also arcane too. And so you have to wait for that. So with Bitcoin, you can move your money anytime you want. You get instant settlement, and the person on the other end gets the opportunity to use that money anytime they want as well. So there's a sort of practical nuts and bolts medium of exchange answer to that question. But there's also the personal responsibility, right? You're a business owner. You run your own business. You're not a stranger to personal responsibility. You don't hide from personal responsibility. You're in charge of people putting food on the family for their food on the table for their family. You're in charge of payroll. You're in charge of running an organization that many people rely on you. So this is just the next step in personal responsibility. Instead of outsourcing it to another institution, you get to take control over it. And with that control means no one can take it from you. Um, no one is able to take your property from you, your digital property, your digital money, which is Bitcoin. You're in full control of it. You have responsibility over it. And God forbid something happens. Listen, we saw a bank run last year with Silicon, or 2 years ago now, with Silicon Valley Bank. What if the government didn't step in? What if they didn't bail them out? Everyone holding their money at that institution, there were lines going down the street at that institution. Everyone in that line, we would have had a It's a Wonderful Life situation there where people aren't getting their money back. And so I'm guessing those people would probably not have the community hearted spirit of a feel good Hollywood movie where they said, just keep it, and we'll let you keep running your fractional reserve Ponzi. And I get if I pull my money out, the whole system falls apart. So there is a situation where financial institutions, listen, I lived through 08, 09, and I watched bank after competitor collapse around me, hundreds of banks, and that never made it. And in some cases, if you had over $250,000 at that institution, you weren't covered. And guess what? Even if you are covered, well, the government has to print that $249,000 and send it to you. So now your 249,000 is worth like 244,000 because they had to make the money out of thin air just to make you whole. So you're getting debased. So you don't know that your money's safe. It may not be there for you. And if you actually do get your money back, it's going to be at a discount to what you want. And maybe that seems unlikely. Maybe that seems like a doomsday scenario, but it's happened before in this country. It's happened in the past 2 decades, and it's going to happen again. It's just a matter of if, when, and if you're going to be one of the people on the hook for it. So you get actual control over your money, and you don't have to worry about bank runs, financial collapses, '08 happening again, and what might be the outcome. Listen, '08, '09 could have turned out very, very differently if they had let the banks fail, and not reliquified the FDIC insurance, or did some other course of action. Things could have been very, very differently. And that the next time around, that may be the case. You don't have to worry about any of that when you hold your own Bitcoin.
Said, I'll add a few thoughts too. Bitcoin is a bearer instrument, similar to holding a gold bar. So if you have it, if you send it, it's final settlement, right? So Brandon talked about personal responsibility and how business owners are no stranger to that. I would clarify that getting off of zero is the goal, is to have some allocation. But you talk about risk, it I think the allocation to Bitcoin and self custody should be proportionate to your understanding, conviction, and the work you've done because of the responsibility. So there doesn't need to be, oh, I lost my life savings because I lost my password, right? Why would you put your whole life savings into something if you haven't done basic due diligence? And so my point is, getting off of zero means you should get comfortable with self custody. And by the way, what's the value of running a node? I've had a customer ask me this question, and I keep sending them videos of verifying if that gold bar is really gold, right? I don't know if you saw that thing with CZ and Peter Schiff, where he hands him a gold bar, and he's like, "Is this gold?" I don't know. Well, what's my point? Running a Bitcoin node, if you send me a transaction, I can verify that it's real Bitcoin before the gets validated and accepted. So there's no counterfeit Bitcoin. So running a node, being your own bank, but again, like taking responsibility. So whatever you have in self custody can't be seized. A central exchange can't rehypothecate it, let alone go bankrupt or hack it or steal it from you. So once you take the self custody of the bearer instrument, it's yours. It's true ownership, right? And we can get into some really cool tangents about memorizing your seed words and basically knowing is owning. So then all of a sudden the digital transformation of gold is my digital gold, my Bitcoin is in my head. But anyways, I digress there. But my point is, I don't think it's a right recommendation to over allocate step one. I think it's a journey, and there needs to be like a plan on how to get comfortable, have protocols in place, safeguards, and then an allocation. Is it 1 or 5 or 10% to begin with? And once you feel more comfortable, have conviction and time on behind you, then your stack can grow in self custody. The other point is too is because Bitcoin is mainstream now. If you don't want to take personal responsibility and self custody, yeah, there's ETFs and financial products where if you only care about the dollar gains of Bitcoin, Bitcoin's number go up in dollar terms, you can pay BlackRock and Fidelity and these other ETFs, and they'll charge you fees. And do you own real Bitcoin? No, you don't. But if you're, this is just asking yourself or us talking to people to say, what is it you really want? You're like, well, I see that Bitcoin's going up in dollars. I want to have more dollars. Oh, you want more dollars? Well, that's why you wanted to invest in all these other things. If you don't want more dollars, you're like, I actually want to trade my fiat dollars or my pesos, and I want gold or Bitcoin. Now we're talking. So what you're doing is you're trading a fiat currency for something that's hard asset. And what's the difference between gold and Bitcoin? How much gold is there on the planet? I don't know. How much Bitcoin? Only 21 million. And then there's a bunch that's been lost. So that's actually, if you ask me where I want to trade my fiat into, it's Bitcoin. But again, you don't do it all at once. And then again, there are people and organizations and partners where we can help you. And some of our partners include, multi-sig, so having keys in different places, as well as insurance and so forth. So there's lots of, and this all becomes more important if the value or size of your stack gets bigger. So there's actual maturity model. Like, are you a beginner? Are you intermediate or advanced? Is this 5% of your portfolio or 90%? These are different conversations, right? But again, none of this matters if it's theoretical and you're not, if you don't have skin in the game and you're just kicking the tires, then then it's just let's send you some information. But once you start taking action, that's where it gets interesting.
Best way to learn about Bitcoin is to buy some Bitcoin. So
And use some Bitcoin, accept it,
and buy and use it. Yes, exactly.
run a node, send it.
Wow, this is exciting, guys. I'm all in. Get me onto the Bitcoin standard for my business ASAP.
Nice.
No,
Well, yeah, probably a good spot to wrap here. Appreciate you guys joining us, Jeff and John, joining me. I keep saying us, but you're us. So I appreciate you coming on. So as you can tell, if you're listening to this one, it's obviously very different than the pods we've been doing. We kind of wanted to record an episode just for us to talk and then also to get something out there for people that aren't as deep down the Bitcoin rabbit hole as probably most of our normal listeners are, and to be something we can share with prospective business owners, or maybe even a tool for you guys that are listening to say, hey, you're a prospective business owner, listen to what these guys are doing, listen to what they're talking about. So I know we went over some more basic points, some sort of early in your journey Bitcoin steps today, but the idea was really to put some content out there that you can hand off easily to someone who hasn't started their journey, or maybe has taken one step into their journey or something like that. And just to look back and talk about what we're doing at Sovereign, and also put out the signal to other people in the Bitcoin space. At the same time, what are we doing? What are we actually trying to accomplish? Does this sound like something that might be interesting to you? Do you want to reach out? Do you want to work with us? Do you want to partner with us? So take that into consideration as well as you listen to this. You can find all of us on various platforms. We'll go through that. I'm Noster only. I'm Plebe Anon, PLBIANON. Forget how to spell my own handle sometimes. And then Jeff and John will give theirs in a second here. But the best place to reach us is our LinkedIn account, the website, Sovereign, SOVREIGN.io, or our Twitter account, SovereignX, and or on Noster, our Sovereign account there as well. Those are probably the best places to get a hold of us. You'll definitely get a response from us. And so, to the extent that you guys do want to reach out, talk to us, we want to hear from you and talk to you. And even if you just want to reach out, tell us what you're doing. Maybe there's a way for us to work together to do some business together in the future. So please do that too. We talk to people all the time that are in the industry building stuff. And listen, we're all in this together, just like COVID. We're here to save the world together. So, being a bit facetious here, but in all seriousness, everyone working in the Bitcoin space is working towards the same end, which is getting more people to store their savings in Bitcoin, more companies to store their savings in Bitcoin, more organizations to store their savings in Bitcoin, and we're all working toward the same thing. So please feel free to reach out for anyone working towards the same common goal. And so, Jeff and John, I'll give it back to you guys to let people know where they can find you, and any closing words, ideas, thoughts, or anything else you might have.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we all have profiles on the website, sovereign.io, and yeah, I think we also created a 800 phone number that's on the website. Again, like a helpline. Trying to see if boomers will pick up the phone. I don't know. Um, but yeah, I'm on X, Twitter X, at BTCYN. So it's like BTC forward, NYC backwards, just playing with that. But yeah, all the links are on the website on our About Us page. We have a contact form. Contact us if you wanted to. If you don't know who to reach out to, you can just tell us a little bit about you, and we'll read it and quarterback you to the right person. There's 800 number. You could leave a voicemail. Again, we'll reach out. And what Brandon said too is the audience for this episode, or what we were thinking was, one, we've got great customers and we're looking to help more people. And we get to choose our customers. It's a two-way street. We get to choose great customers and they choose us. And so also referral partners. If you can't orange pill or help someone you by yourself, who do you call? We want it. We have a referral network and we work really well with referral partners. And then two, growing the ecosystem is, if you see yourself as potentially joining the Sovereign team, we'd love to hear from you. And again, one of my mission or goals here is, I don't know about job creation, but creating billable hours for the the plebs, however you want to pronounce it, Noster, Noster, whatever, tomato, tomato.
Cheers.
Yeah. And so my point is, like, job creation, you can join the team, but also, what if we have a deep bench of talent? What if you are a Bitcoiner and you're technical, or you have some type of industry domain expertise? All the people we've learned along the way, and you could keep your day job, but if we get a really interesting project, what makes me happy is to think about uh, being able to share billable hours on the mission of helping people and organizations adopt and integrate Bitcoin into their businesses. And if you have a unique talent or skill set, we'd love to hear from you. So again, um, yeah, and then we have great partners, referral partners. We don't sell the Bitcoin, but we'll point you to the right places to buy Bitcoin, and you have some choices. And it's not just buying Bitcoin, it's up and down the stack of the maturity model. So again, the Bitcoin only industry, it's a lot of fun to get to know everybody. And again, I always enjoy meeting customers where it's a puzzle and we get to solve and help them and then think about who to connect them to. So with that being said, John, CMO, how can people find you?
2026 is going to be an incredible year at Sovereign. Come join us. Study Bitcoin, get off zero. That's all I got to say. And you can find me, just my name is my handle everywhere at John Balkam. Really enjoyed this, fellas, and let's keep building.
Absolutely. Thanks, gents, for joining me, and looking forward to an awesome 2026. Cheers.